What's up, guys? Okay, so this video is going to be about getting a dedicated Satisfactory server installed on Ubuntu. This video is going to be very similar to the one that I did on Ark Survival, and in fact, the commands are pretty much identical, minus the specifics of Satisfactory, like which app update you do on the Steam command. I've got a couple different like little performance things that I added to my Ark server that I'm just going to apply to this Satisfactory server, because the Satisfactory I think is easily as heavy as Ark Survival server-wise. The VM I provisioned has 4 vCPU and 16 gigs of RAM, and it runs on my personal home VMware ESXi server. It's just basically a beefy Dell Precision with 128 gigs of RAM, and so I have lots of RAM on it. And it's an older Xeon processor, but it does pretty well for what I use it for. All right, so let's get started. So basically, I'm going to do this tutorial on Ubuntu 22.10. Probably should have used 22.04. I just realized literally right now that I had done 22.10 instead of 22.04. That's okay. I think the process will be the same. So basically, always what you want to do is start out with fully updated system. You can see mine, I already did that, so I got 0 updates can be applied immediately. Oops. Of course, you can't copy the line and expect it to do what you want. We delete that. Also, so I started out with logging in as root, or sudoing to root rather. I logged in as myself in sudo root. Okay, so we're fully up to date. I'm in as root. If you don't want to do it as root, you just have to append sudo to the beginning of it, prefix sudo to the beginning of everything. So a couple things required for the Steam command, at least from my experience. One is this repository multiverse. Somebody else had this thing out there where they recommended doing software properties common. To be honest with you, I think I might. It doesn't hurt to have it on there. I did it the first time I did this, and it's just fine. You can read up a little bit about that, but I'm going to skip it, I think, this time and see if everything works fine. So I do need to do another update, I believe, here before we'll be able to see these. Could be wrong on that. We'll have to fumble through this real quick just to get these pieces installed. Because if you just do apt install Steam command initially, it's not gonna work. Also, the lib32gcc. So this version of Ubuntu, I don't know if this is the case for 22.04, but you can't do GCC 1 or L. To be honest with you, I don't know which one it is. Anyhow, on this system, it's S1. Yeah, because well, let me just show you. So if I do GCC 1, I think it's 1. Yeah, see right there it says, however, the following packages replace it. So that might be a 2210 thing, a repo for 2210. I don't know. So you'll have to see what happens when you try to install lib32gcc. I'm going to install the S1 version, because that's what's recommended apparently. And then we're going to go ahead and install Steam command. And there it is. Okay, so we skipped this software properties common. I'm going to leave it out. You can install it if you want to. I don't, by the end of this video, you determine, I think, whether or not you actually want to have it in there. All right, so Steam command is installed. I'm going to do a couple file limit maximums here. So we're going to edit this sys control here, and I'm going to type in fs.file max 100,000. We're also going to edit the limits here and set soft and hard to 100,000. I don't want to comment that line. So I'm going to copy these, paste them there. All right, so I've got 2 files edited with some limits. Let me just run ulimit also. All right, so I set some file limits to be pretty high, higher than standard, at least higher than I think standard is. To be honest with you, maybe Ubuntu's been changing these things over the years. I don't know, but it doesn't hurt to put them that way, I don't think. It hasn't affected me, so you can go ahead and do it if you just trust that the command is a decent command. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. You can see what happens when your system runs without them. All right, I'm going to run Steam, so the Steam game, so Satisfactory. I'm going to run it under a user called Steam. I would highly recommend you replace this password with your password. For the demonstration purposes, I'm just typing that in. I don't, like, from a security perspective, we're running it under a different user because we want the context of the game to be under a specific user. You certainly don't want to run it as root. You don't want someone to be able to exploit the Satisfactory game engine and then get, you know, root level access. And so if you run it under a service account or a user that doesn't have root root level access, then exploiting is much less likely. So we're going to go ahead and create that Steam user, and then I'm going to switch to the Steam user because there's a couple things we need to do as the Steam user instead of root. So su space dash space Steam. Now you can see down here the prompt, I'm in as Steam. The first thing we need to do is create a symbolic link to the Steam command, because Steam command gets installed under user games, and Steam command is not part of your path. Oh, maybe it is. That's very interesting. Well, I thought, so the first time I had ran this, it literally told me that it wasn't part of the path. It told me where to find it, and then you should probably create a symlink for that. But clearly it looks like it's part of the path because I just ran it and it worked just fine. So we can try skipping this if you'd like, or you can just do it. It's really doesn't mean anything. It just creates a symlink to it. And if you look in the folder now, I have Steam command here symlinked to the user games. If we were to say echo path, you can see that user games is in my path statement for Steam user. So it's probably like then that would, to me, that would say that I don't need this symlink. So that's up to you if you want to create it. I don't think it's necessary now that I see that. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to run the Steam command to install the game. I'm specifying a forster. I want it in this home Steam folder for the user in Satisfactory. This is the app number in the Steam database, 1690800. And we're just going to log in anonymously. I think the dash beta, I got this from some site. I think that means don't install the beta version. You're just going to install the stable release, right? But it's still in beta, I think. Maybe that's what dash beta means. I don't know. I don't understand the plus and the minus for options on Steam command. Is it like not using beta, or is it using beta? Is the plus using apt update? Like you get, yeah, anyhow. So we're going to go ahead and just do this first time. I'm also going to make it so that the service that we create that runs Satisfactory also runs this every time the service starts, because you want to make sure that the game is up to date every time you restart the server. And that's part of the service definition, which I'll show you in a second. So it would run this as well as soon as you tried to start the service. I don't know how big this game is. I might have to pause it. All right, I'll be back. Okay, we're back. So the game is officially installed and updated and stuff. So now if you look at this Steam folder here, you can see I've got a Satisfactory folder, right, in my home folder. So if I say present working directory, home Steam Satisfactory, that's where I requested it to install. So if you look at some instructions online, you'll see that a lot of people say that you could run the server as factory server.shell. And you can see what it basically does is it's essentially making some variables here based off of script name, I believe. Yep, that's what %0 or $0 means. And then it gets the directory name, and then puts the path at the front. And this is your binary because it's adding an execute bit to that permissions, and then it runs this Linux shipping UE4 engine server, Linux shipping, factor game, and then all of your options. And so you can run it that way. You just have to provide the command lines. But the problem with that is that then you have to always run it yourself when you start up the Linux server. So I want it to run as a service so that it auto starts every time the server reboots. Just a little bit easier in my opinion. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our own service file called satisfactory.service in this path, etc systemd system. And I'm just going to copy paste this, and this entire script will be available. There'll be a link in the description. Okay, so paste it in there. So basically, Satisfactory Server is a description, so that's what you'll see on the service list. It's going to run as user the exec start pre. Remember I was saying that every time it starts up, it runs that app update. So there you go. So every time it starts, that's the first thing it runs is it tries to update the app. And then here's your exec start. So this is the command that runs to start the game. So it's very similar to that shell script I just showed you. And then I have log and unattended because it's running as a server, so you can't have any prompts. You're not going to be able to respond to the prompts. And then the reload and stop commands, I'm just using kill. And then the working directory. I set the working directory to the same as the binary that we're running. And that's it. So let's go ahead and write and save that. Oh, I'm in the wrong user, guys. Can't do that as... let me exit now. Let's go back to root. My bad. I can't do that as a standard user. This is a root level admin task. Okay, so let's do the same thing again. All right, go ahead and save it now. Okay. We're going to want to restart the system control daemon so that it ingests that new control or service file. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the game. So it takes a little bit of time. The first time I ran this, it probably took almost a minute, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. I'll be right back. All right, that was a little bit faster than I thought, but it did take some time. Okay, so the game should be running. So let's go ahead and check the status of that service, and it should give us some specifics on it. You can see that it's active and running. You can see that it's doing some output here. So I would imagine the server is probably at least in some up state. Whether or not it needs to build some worlds or something, I don't know. If you can say journal, CTL, reverse order, unit, satisfactory service name, you can scroll through the logs. And so it'll kind of tell you, hey, this is what it's doing. It's probably got some errors. Not implemented. So logging's not implemented. I don't know if that's probably not an issue. You're just not going to get logs. You could fix that if you wanted to. I think there's some articles on the internet, people figuring that one out. All right, so the game is running. Like we've got it up and going. So what I want to do next is I'm going to pull up Satisfactory. So actually, the next thing you would need to do, I already did this. So I wanted to make sure that I explain it though, and not forget like I almost did. So basically, to expose this externally, because I would imagine that's what you want to do with this dedicated server, right? You don't want to just play this at home with yourself, or maybe you do. You can do that. If that's the case, then you don't need to do anything else. If you want to expose it so your friends can play outside of your house, you have to do some NAT and or port forwarding, whatever you want to call it. It's just network address translation. So you want to take these 3 ports and redirect them or port forward them from your router, your edge router, so your firewall, your ASUS or whatever you use for your firewall at home, or maybe something more advanced than that. But you want to port forward these to this Linux host. Just these IPs. Don't port forward everything because that's too many ports to be open. Port forward just the stuff that you need for this game to be working. And that is 1577, 15,000, and 7777, which you notice if you play Arc, that's like this. Arc uses a very similar port, and that's probably because it runs on Steam, very similar engine. So port forward these, you're going to need that. If you're connecting local, you don't want to obviously, like I'm going to go add my server and I'm going to add it as my local IP. If I were to have my friends connect, I would want them to use my outside internet IP. So if you like went to your web browser and you said, in Google, you said, what's my IP? That IP address is likely the one that you'd want to give to your friends to connect. But for you, because you're on the same network as the server, likely, you would connect to the local IP for that server. So let's go over to Satisfactory. I want to say Server Manager, because that's how we're going to connect to it. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. I'm going to go ahead and hit Add Server. And we're going to add the local IP for me. So this, oh, that's awesome. It's hidden. I don't know if that matters. Like, I don't care if you know what my IP addresses are internal. So 192.168.17.54 is the IP address of this server. It's on port 15,777. I'm going to go ahead and hit confirm. And it's going to authenticate. You can see the server's up. So it's already responded. Basically what it's telling me, this is the first time I've connected to it. It's saying, hey, it's not configured. What do you want to call this server? So let's just go with Geekhead. You can type in whatever you want for yours. Confirm, and then an admin password. So obviously something that you don't like only tell this to people that you trust, obviously. And then you have to create a game. So I don't fully understand exactly how the Satisfactory game engine works. I'm assuming that it runs one game at a time, but maybe I'm wrong on that, and you can have like multiple games running. I don't think so. But either way, it doesn't come with anything loaded at first. So the first thing you'd want to do is create a game. Pick the world that you want. I'm going to go with grass fields because I'm a brand new player to this game. I'm going to go ahead and set a join when ready. I'm going to click grass fields, and the session name, we'll just call this Geekhead World V1. And I'm going to go ahead and say, actually, I'm going to uncheck this. I'm going to say create game. Server is preparing a new game. So I don't know, like we could go over connecting to server. Oh, interesting. That was pretty fast. So I'm kind of curious if we look here, what this is doing. It's got some errors on the screen there. Cannot open shared object file. We'll find out, I suppose, if that's an actual issue or not. It looks like the game created because now it's basically back to this prompt. So let's go to server settings though. We want to set, so we already have the administration password set. You can set it again just to validate it if you want to, but I'm pretty sure we literally just set this. But just to confirm, that way nobody has it, you can reset it. Player password protection. So this is like the password you'd use for people to join. I would recommend I don't know. I would recommend setting it. Sorry, I got distracted there. I don't know what password I want to put for this. All right, I set a password. You want that, unless of course you want just everybody connecting to your server. Like it's unlikely that they're going to find you on that IP address though, and just connect in and sabotage your world in Satisfactory. But it's probably a good idea to have a password. That way, only people that know your password can you know, connect to your game. There's a cool option here. It says pause the game when no players are connected. I actually think I might uncheck this so that my factory, once you get to like coal power plants, like they're endless fuel, so they could run forever. So why not just have it always processing stuff even while you logged off, and then you come back and like all your bins are full of materials? That would be kind of good. So I eventually might actually uncheck this. We'll have to see what it's like for performance, or you know, if your world burns up and you're gone or so. I don't know. Like I haven't played the game enough, honestly, to know what happens. But this is probably a cool thing to be able to just have that, because then it would just be doing stuff in the background. It'd be awesome. All right. So I think it's ready. So I should be able to join this game. Let's see if it lets me in. You are not connected. Oh, that's kind of weird. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause it because I don't know how long this takes. All right, interestingly enough, it actually aired out. And if I remember the first time I did this, it did the same thing to me. So it's kind of odd, honestly. What I'm going to do is we're just going to try doing it again. So I'm going to go to Server Manager, and we're just going to try to connect right back into it, because I think the server's probably just building or something, or starting up for the first time. I don't know. Like, it's kind of odd because you would think that it would just sit there and wait. I guess it tried to connect to the server. So here's what I think probably happened. It got an initiation. Somebody's trying to connect to the world. Let's generate the world or something like that. And it took too long to generate the world. Maybe my server's not strong enough or fast enough. It is running on an SSD. But anyhow, so it gets a signal for that. And then my client sits there and says, well, I'm trying to connect to the world, but the server never responds after 30 seconds and goes, well, the server's dead. But the server was too busy doing something else, trying to, I don't know, load the world or whatever. So the first time this happened, I just literally went in and reconnected. After a certain amount of time, I think it just started working. So we'll see if that's the case. We might have to try connecting a few times. I do think that maybe I'll have to work through, yeah, see, it worked. I might have to work through some of the errors in the logs for the game engine or game server. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So basically, this is it. I'm in. This is my world. So now I can, you know, get some friends to play with me, and you don't have to like always have your game up and running. They can connect to it even when you're not around, which is kind of nice. Like that's the point that's really beneficial. Plus, I mean, that's the biggest point, really. That and the fact that you could have the server just running in the background too while you log off, which is likely the setting I'll be turning on. So yeah, so that's it. You've got your own Satisfactory server, and if you did the port forwarding right, it does work. I validated with my mom. My mom plays this game with me, and she was able to connect from her house. And we played for a little bit, and then I rebuilt it. So that's it. That's all I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you can successfully do this server build. If you can't figure out some pieces, just leave me a comment. I'll try to help you out on YouTube. See you around.